other, like the animal kingdom. They might live and they grow up and they eat the food, they procreate, and then they eventually die. Do you think we are not beyond that? We are not about that as human beings? Yes, of course we are. If I were to ask you what was the purpose in life, what would you say? I know it's a difficult question. I see that huge sigh. But this is an existential question which all philosophers, all the people who think about their own existence at some point asked. I'm sure you guys did as well. Because you look like intelligent people, and I'm sure whether it's in your classroom or within your own, I don't know, in your privacy at home, you must have pondered on this question. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my existence? Give me your best shot. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. Wait, let them answer.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah? What do you think is the... So, I don't know. Don't be embarrassed. Because, look, we all have reasons to live in this life. What is the purpose you think you exist?
I sort of grapple with two ways. So I have my personal view, which is to make as much meaning as I can, whatever that means. And then more broadly, what's the meaning for human existence? I don't know.
Yeah, good, fun.
How do we know? And that's the thing.
No, give me your personal and the broader existence. Give me both.
Well, as humans, we always want to know why, and we always want to understand and have an explanation for everything, but I just haven't been able to find.
Okay, so you haven't actually found a response to that profound question. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a small question.
Yeah.
It's a very small, one line,
Yeah.
But the answer, it baffles everyone. Yeah. Because first and foremost, to find an answer itself, look, your bag has a purpose. Yeah, your clothes have a purpose. Why do you think you don't have a purpose? If such insignificant things have a purpose, why do you think you don't have a purpose? Because if you are just like animals, who are born, eat, drink, procreate, they don't even get married, do they? And they die eventually. I'm sure with that extra feature we have called reasoning and rationality, we must have a higher purpose. I'm pretty sure, as a human being, I can sense this.
Yeah.
Can I pose the same question to you?
Yeah, I'll answer, of course. Because my answer comes from the Quran. So for me, it's easy. I can actually just copy the answer. But I didn't just come to that answer just like that. Obviously, before accepting the Quran and my religion and my God, obviously I had to go through the same exercise you guys went through. I had to question everything. But then I come to a conclusion that all this is impossible for it all to come into existence from nothing, just like magic. Yeah, it's something which I cannot, as a human being with my rationality, accept that it just popped out of existence from there. Because just like the brother asked you about the phone, or I asked you about the bag. If such insignificant things, your eye itself is the best camera than any camera in existence today. I don't know how many thousands of megapixels your eyes are, which they cannot even grasp a fraction of that. Okay? So one eye, if I were to ask you, okay, I'm going to give you 20 million, give me one eye of yours. What are you going to say? Okay? You sure? How about two eyes?
No.
20 million.
20 million, 40 million, and you live blind all your life?
A couple $100.
You sure?
I'm happy with
When I come with the scissors or the knife, you'll change your mind, trust me. Okay, so it's very easy to make this, but when you to commit to it, it's difficult. And we all know the value of every single organ of ours. Yes? Every major organ of yours. Yes? You know it is something, even the appendix.
No appendix, actually.
Even the appendix. Many people say these vestigial organs have no reason to exist. They are irrelevant. But the list of vestigial organs is getting shorter because as the days go by, they find out the reason. The appendix has got a lot to do with the stress. Go and look it up. So the old studies, maybe in the 90s and all, it's irrelevant. Remember they talked about the junk DNA? The junk DNA. So our DNA, only a fraction of it is used. Yeah, the color of your eyes, the skin tone, the color of your hair, all this comes from the parents and the grandparents and so on. Yes? But then they said that only a small percentage of your DNA is relevant to that hereditary traits from your ancestors. And the rest is junk. That is what they told us. As the days goes by, this junk DNA becomes more and more relevant. They find out the purpose of a lot of this DNA and its reasoning. That just shows us, isn't it? Take the DNA. It's if you look at the structure of it, it's like somebody has programmed it. Someone intelligent has programmed it. There's no way in a million years you will say that it's going to be a perfect layout of the chromosomes and the DNA, the way it is, it's impossible. That it came about by chance.
Look at different shaped noses all around the world, and it's for different environments.
No, it's based on your DNA. Your environment can change. For example, if you go to a hotter country, your skin tone might change. It adapts.
You need more melanin.
Yeah. Why does it adapt? The melanin and all? Because there are switches inside your own system, in your physiology, which switch on and off. You know, sometimes you find the fish in two different ponds. They're exactly similar, but over years they've changed because of the environment. It's the same fish, but it has changed the physiology. So when you look at it afterwards, they look completely different fishes. So what the scientists realize is that within the DNA, there are certain switches which switch on and off. So it was already programmed in you for the switches to switch on depending on the circumstances and the environment. Isn't that beautiful? The DNA code is so beautiful that it is already programmed in you that these changes can take place and you can adapt to your environment for yourself to adapt for, obviously, to make sure that you exist now in an environment which might be not easy for you before those changes happen, but now it becomes easier. So what I'm saying is that all these things are programmed in you, and there's no way anyone who has studied the DNA will say that this is just out of by chance, random. There's no such thing. Anyone who has, you know, there's a saying that if you know science, you become an atheist. But if you know if you know science in depth, then you become a believer.
You know, the saying is a sip from the glass of the natural sciences might make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God awaits. Yeah. So it's like the
more you study, the more you realize that this is no way. This is by
one
chance.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, Quran talks about science. Have you ever read? Without Quran, science wouldn't exist. Many things now they found out from the Quran. So now you tell me we believe Quran is the word of Allah, the word of God, and scientists now approved the Quran, which Quran talks about science. So
not just
that also indicates that indicates the existence of God.
Yeah.
Because we believe the words of Allah is the Quran. The Quran is the words of Allah.
Who came up with falsification, or I mean, there's a European man that claimed it, but then he also gave credit backwards to the Muslim scholar and theologian who came up with it. He came up with falsification. So that's
I'll just give you one verse. You tell me what do you think about that verse?
Where yes, Ibn Haytham.
Do you know the
so
verse?
Where it came from was the Quran actually has a falsification test, and this falsification, like the idea of falsificationism, was so deductively and just rationally so
chapter
useful.
23.
He then started applying it in a scientific endeavor, as a scientific method. Because by the way, scientific method isn't something that's standard; it's changed over time. So that's where we get falsification.
Let's not go too much into science. The reason for that is because the Quran, by itself, it says that it's a book of science, not science. So there might be things in there which a scientist might have discovered, but the important thing is that we have to realize that it is a book of science. Okay. So anyway, let's not go too bogged down into that, because we, as like I said, rationally, logically, when you start thinking, all of this falls into place.
Brother Hashim, I just want you to tell them this science. This verse is in the Quran, chapter 23, verse 14. It talks about science, and you can search up scientists talk about this. So it says it's about the creation of mankind, the process. So it says here, then we made the seed a clot. Then we made the clot a lump of flesh. Then we made in the lump of flesh bones. Then we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we caused it to grow into another creation.
Yes, thank you. What's it called?
You see that? The cloth and all that, the procedure, the way, the flesh, the bones, all that. It's in the Quran. So where did they get from? Even the three darkness, scientists talk about that, in the womb, in the darkness of the belly, and the water, all that is in the Quran. Chapter 30, it says in chapter 39.
You can search up non-Muslim embryologists.
Yes, you can search up. So now you tell me, the Quran, scientists now approve themselves, they approve that the existence of Allah. Do you know why? Because the Quran is the words of Allah. If it's the word of Allah, and they approve in Quran, and they got the science from the Quran. So Prophet Muhammad never knew about science. He was an illiterate. He never knew how to write. He never knew how to read. He never knew about science.
Remarkable thing
so
is
now,
that,
so now you tell me, how can you deny? So now you believe what science say, yes? And they quoted from the Quran. Why can you not believe the existence of Allah, then, of God? Since you believe science, since you believe whatever science say, and they quoted from the Quran, so therefore you should believe the Quran. Because you said Big Bang, and who told you science? Scientists. Were they there? No. Do you have any evidence? No. So why something that you don't even have? Imagine you believe. Yeah, you can ask. You believe, even now you believe of Big Bang relies on without an evidence. So Big Bang is gone. And plus, additionally, everything science say, they disagree. Am I right, Brother Hashim? Brother Hashim? Brother Hashim, wait, brother. Brother Hashim, do you agree with me? All scientists, in some cases, they disagree upon matters. See?
Oh, yeah, well, that's
so see now. So even then, whatever they say is not accurate. You don't believe.
You got a question, you said?
You have a question?
Sorry, I did not answer the question I asked you earlier about our purpose.
Yeah? Yeah. This is every brother? Oh, yeah.
Worship of God. What does that actually mean? Worship doesn't mean to pray all day and that's it. No. Worship means to be obedient to God. Yes? So the obedience to God means, again, everything that He has forbidden us to do, we abstain from that, and everything He has recommended for us to do, we do that. Yes? Now, what does that mean? For example, let's say you as an agnostic or an atheist were my neighbor. My religion teaches me, yeah, inshallah, okay. My religion teaches me that I have to respect my neighbors regardless of their faith or lack of faith for the have it on yourself. Yeah. And this is something that we have to respect as Muslims. We have to respect our neighbors. Doesn't matter what background they are from, belief or disbelief, doesn't matter. So I would not be a Muslim. In fact, I would be a bad Muslim if I Assalamualaikum, brother. Take care.
One advice, I'm just going.
Yeah, sure.
And inshallah, if you go and read the Quran, if you just read one verse and you don't read the rest of the Quran, you will not understand the Quran.
Yep.
So let's say you can come to cross like a verse that talks about during the battle. So do not assume it says about killing the non-Muslims. Some verses, it tells us, like chapter 60 verse 8, Allah tells us, do not kill, you have to give peaceful the non-Muslims if they incline peace.
Yeah.
So do you understand that? So if you
take it in context, basically.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
I'm just saying the context.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, I definitely get that.
All right, Jazakallah khair. So what I was saying is that the purpose of your life is basically obedience. What does obedience mean? You know, if you got a phone and you know who the manufacturer is, whenever you buy a phone, they give you a user guide with it, isn't it? Any equipment that is complex, they give you a user guide. In fact, I think today, even if you buy like a scissor or something, they give you some sort of written. It just shows you professionality, that they care for your safety and security. So you would, if you have a Samsung phone, you'll prefer that you go by what the manufacturer tells you rather than what some Tom, Dick and Harry tells you about that phone, because you would trust them more. Similarly, we believe that the Creator has created us and He knows what is best for us as individuals and as a community as well. Yes? So I'll give you just one example. Take the example of alcohol. Yeah? Today in every society, whether it's in the West and even the East, unfortunately, alcohol has become quite normal. Many people say it's good to have a glass of wine, to drink socially, not to get drunk, that is bad obviously, but then the government knows that even a small quantity of alcohol is bad for you. You know, there was a huge study done by scientists, experts in this field, and the result was published in The Lancet. The Lancet is one of the most respected medical journals, and they say that no amount of alcohol is safe. These were their words, not my words. No amount of alcohol is safe. You know why? Because they had done like a 30-year study over thousands of people. Yes, not just an overnight thing. A proper scientific study, and this was published in a peer-reviewed journal, in the medical journal that is highly respected called The Lancet. And this is their verdict, not ours as Muslims. Now, after hearing this, what do most people who say they believe in science, they did? Did they actually go by the scientific result? No. They went by their own whims and desires. Because whatever they feel good, they say that is right. So even that science which they have firm faith in, they would reject it. Why? Because they say that I feel this is right. And the government, what does it do? It does the same thing. Because the government, it doesn't care about your health and safety. It cares about the fact that it wants to get the most benefit because there's a lot of money in alcohol industries. Yes, there's advertising. If you look at most of the football, when I say football, I don't mean the American football, the proper football, yeah? Or the soccer as the Americans would call it. All these teams, they advertise Carlsberg and all these different alcoholic drinks, these companies. And these companies, they pay them huge amounts of money to advertise this on the t-shirts. And also in the stadium, many of the stadiums are fully funded by them. Yes? And this government, they also get a lot of tax money because a lot of tax is imposed on them. Yeah, every year when the budget comes out, most of these guys who are addicted to smoking and drinking, the first thing they do, the budget is out. Has the price gone up? Yes, it's gone up by a few pennies again. Yes, does it make a difference to them? No. Because how the government does it does it a few pennies every year. Yes, so in a few years, it's like 10 pounds more per packet of cigarette. Yes, per pint of drink. They don't notice this, but it eventually adds up. And in a year, they spend like thousands of pounds on these drinks, which doesn't benefit them, but harms them. Yes, what does Allah say in the Quran? It says, when alcohol was forbidden, Allah did not forbid it overnight. By the wisdom of Allah, by the wisdom of the Creator, He said initially that there is some benefit in it, but the harm outweighs the benefit. So that was number one. So it is like indicating to the people who are intelligent that the harm is greater than the benefit. And everyone knows this today. But do they still smoke and drink? Yes, they do. Okay? Those people who are addicted to it, they can't.
So is that with also like weed, stuff like that as well? Is that also haram?
Absolutely. Anything that harms your body, yes, the word that's used in the Quran it's not just alcohol or something like that.
Any substance?
Any intoxicant.
Anything that alters your mental states
okay, so
beyond,
like
your cognition. Yes.
It includes drugs. It includes everything, basically.
We're talking about recreational drugs of all sorts. Because if you really think about it, alcohol is a drug. Yeah. It's just marketed better.
Yeah.
And then the second phase, what does God say? It says, do not approach the prayers while you're drunk. So again, now it's trying to tell them that you can't approach prayers. And prayers, the Muslims pray 5 times a day. So for them to abstain from it, it becomes a challenge again. Okay? And the third time, when the revelation came, it was like, now it's forbidden. So it came in stages. You know the wisdom behind this? If you look at any rehab clinics, they don't go cold turkey for the people who are going through the rehab. So if they go cold turkey, it impacts them badly. So it's counterproductive actually. So they wean you off gradually. Yes. So say for example, if you drink maybe how many smoke a whole packet one day, they take away 1 cigarette from that and they say maybe you can smoke, or maybe drug addicts or alcohol or whatever it is. So they wean you off gradually until you stop drinking altogether or you stop the drugs altogether. And this is the wisdom behind it. And that's why Allah didn't do it overnight. He could have if He wanted to. Yeah. So this is one prohibition in the Quran. Like this, other things are prohibited, like adultery, fornication, gambling, yes, killing, obviously, murder, all these things. So if you look at everything that Allah is prohibited in the Quran, you will never disagree with any of them. All the prohibitions are there for a reason. Yes, and alcohol is not just something that you harm yourself as an individual. Someone who is drunk can knock off someone who never drinks in their life. Yes, and this is again not only for themselves. Maybe their family are sitting in the car with them who don't drink or who did not drink that day, and they kill that family, unfortunately. And maybe a family walking on the footpath because they lost control of the car, they knocked off as well. Yes, today if you go to any medical service, any emergency service, doesn't matter if it's Australia or the UK, you'll find every weekend there's huge cases of people who are drunk. And these people are intelligent people. During the day, they might have a respectful job, maybe as a teacher, maybe even as a nurse. Yeah? So they might be in the medical field or a teaching field where they are fully aware of the consequences. But because it becomes a social thing, because of the peer pressure, they start drinking and so on. But what does the Quran say? Again, remember I told you it's about obedience to God. And this is the purpose of life. That if we are obedient to our Creator, then our life as an individual, as a society, will be much better. I've seen people who were celebrities. When they started taking on gambling, they destroyed themselves, destroyed their family, lost all the money that they had earned during their celebrity life. Yes? And they became in such a state that they were literally begging for money. They started lying to their friends to borrow money for them. They were indebted. You know, and speaking of debt, there's another thing that Islam prohibits is interest rates. You know, most interest. So the banks, they charge you a lot of interest. You know why it's prohibited? Because most of the people who need to borrow money are in need of money. Yes, except for those millionaires who already have millions. They want to borrow more money because they know that this is the way they can save taxes. Yes, but again, the harm always falls on the people who borrow money and who cannot pay it back. Yes, and the rich become richer, and the poor become poorer, become more indebted, and they destroy their lives.
You could look at how the International Monetary Fund has the whole continent of Africa as like financially enslaved because African countries are so in debt to European countries and North America that they cannot even make the interest payments on their debt. So that's kind of the whole point. Like it's a financial enslavement tool that puts the needy under a position they can't get out of, basically. Yes, precisely, and that's why actually in return they get to exploit the natural resources of Africa as a ways of you can't pay us our interest, so we're going to take your natural resources. So that's the wisdom behind why
modern slavery.
Yeah, exactly.
And this it's just snowballs from there, you know, and that is another thing which Allah is prohibited. Yeah, because for us, if we borrow capital from someone, we expect to receive the same capital. Yes, and this is, the reason many young people today cannot afford houses is because of the same reason. They put up the interest rate so high that by the time they finish paying for the house, which might have cost 100,000, it'll end up costing double that money. Yeah. And the young people today, they just have to borrow more money because they have to rent and they have to borrow money for that as well because the wages are not enough for them. So it becomes a huge burden on the society. And this, again, like I said, is not just for the individual, but it affects the whole society. And Islam again brings a solution to this. Yeah. What is the solution? Don't demand interest. Pay the capital that they have offered you. And this way it helps the people as well. Today, even in a non-Muslim community, who spend the most money for charity? It is the Muslims. We just passed the month of Ramadan. You guys heard of Ramadan? Okay, Ramadan is when the Muslims fast. But they don't just fast in the month. They actually start doing a lot of good things, including giving charity, because it's again an obligation for people who earn money, who have money, to give 2.5% of their savings. 2.5%, yeah. So for every $100, I don't know, Australian dollars, I think, you give $2.5. Yes, but if you have over 1,000, you give accordingly 2.5% of that. And imagine this, it will wipe out poverty in the world. If this were done in an organized fashion, which Islam actually pays great emphasis on. So every year, you must have heard many of these millionaires and billionaires giving a lot of money in charity. They are philanthropists. Yes. Exactly. That is what it is for, because they know that they giving charity is something that is tax deductible, and that's the reason they give. But for us, we give it because our religion requires it, because God told us to, and the bigger picture of that is so that poverty is eliminated. How can we live and we fast? The whole purpose of fasting in the month of Ramadan is obviously for taqwa, the closeness to Allah. But the real reason is, like, for example, it makes us realize that there are other people who don't get 3 times meal, who don't get a one-time meal during the day. And how can we sleep on a full belly when they are going hungry? So charity is a huge portion within Islam. Some of the earliest hospitals built, long before the Europeans built them, were in Muslim countries. Some of these universities, which to this day, are in existence, were actually built by women. Yes.
The oldest university is still running today is in Morocco. It was built by a Muslim woman. Al-Qayrawaniyun. Or Al-Qayrawan, I think. Yeah. But so it's made by Fatima Al-Fihri. She's the scholar who started the university.
So Islam, many times you see in the newspapers or media that the Muslim women are downtrodden, they are the ones who are not educated and all this. But you know, the Prophet's wife, she was one of the most educated in terms of the faith, and many of the companions used to come to her. She was a scholar. And this has always been from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that the women were always encouraged to seek knowledge. And this is huge. It's always been in the case of the Muslims. Again, you must have heard other things like, terrorism and all that. You know, in the Quran, the only time when the fighting was involved was when when your life was something which was threatened. It was in the context of war. You don't just stand there and then let yourself be slapped all around. You have to fight for your rights. And again, Islam not only goes beyond that as well. So even though you might be safe, and if you see some other country being oppressed by other country, which is the oppressor, then you have to help them. Just like in Europe when Hitler was oppressing a lot of people, the Europeans got together and they fought them. It wasn't turn the other cheek. They literally fought them with weapons. But then today, unfortunately, what's happened, if you see in the Middle East, most of the wars that happen is because of the greed of the Western countries. Why was the war in Iraq? Do you guys remember? I don't think you guys are that young. Yeah, but you must have studied about it. They were looking for weapons of mass destruction, and they didn't find any. But they still went to war, even though the United Nations told them. Just a few more minutes and we'll wrap up. So thanks for you guys.
For the mistake that they went.
The important thing is, even after they found out there was no weapons of mass destruction or all those dodgy dossiers that they came up with, they were all false. Nearly 1 million people died there. Million children. Because of hunger.
5,000 children were actually dying because of not getting the medicine. Medicine was not coming into.
That was the big thing. There was a siege on medicine.
Children infant.
And when they were asked that is this something that's justified? And there was, what was the name of the lady who said it is justified to kill children. So you see, the very morals that they went there with, to save the women from oppression, to save the people from oppression, from the tyrant called Saddam Hussein, they ended up doing 10 times worse than what Saddam was doing in that very country. And who brought them to justice? Nobody. So look, Islam is all about justice, about safeguarding the oppressed people, about charity, about helping the needy and the poor, and then bringing them all, like I said, to live in harmony. And no one, look, if anybody imposes Islam, the religion on you, then they're not real Muslims. Because religion is something which you have to accept from your heart. It cannot be imposed on you. If it is imposed, you're fearing the person and not the creator. So everything that I said, like I said, everything that's been forbidden is there for a reason. And everything that's been implemented for you as a recommendation, like to help the needy, to help the oppressed, all these things are good for you and the society at large. Islam has been maligned a lot in the media, but look today, which is the fastest growing religion? You look at any census, and the answer will always be Islam. So even with all the negativity against the Muslim women, it is the women who accept Islam the most. Yes, from the Western, from even the Western countries.
It's
Why?
Funny because they hear a lot about women's rights issues with Islam, so they end up, that piques their interest, so they end up looking into Islam for that specific reason. And then they end up finding that oftentimes that Islam provides them something that Western society does not. More rights or more, value that Western society does not, and that's how it ends up. So it actually works in the opposite way that the media does.
So I know you guys have to go, so one final sentence. What I'm saying, look, I know you both are intelligent and the people who have been listening as well, mashallah. All I'm saying is that think of this life more seriously. It's fun and enjoyment, obviously, and there's a limit to everything. But then think of that example I gave you about the transit and the final destination. Prepare for the final destination. Because like I said, one certainty is that we will all die one day. Yes, so think of that and then approach your life accordingly. I know you guys are still young, so am I, alhamdulillah,
But so, you never know, plenty of people cross the road and get hit by cars.
We don't know when our last breath will be. So, always keep seeking for the truth. Have your intention pure, that I want to seek the truth, and ask if there is a creator out there, if there's someone who's looking after me, I implore you to guide me in the right direction. and do that on a daily basis. And God willing, you guys will seek the truth, and inshallah, with God willing, you'll get hidayah, which is guidance from Allah. So thank you for your time, guys. Really appreciate your time. Take care. Okay. By the way, do you need a Quran or you got one?
I don't have one here. I'll
okay, let's
get her a Quran.
Let's give them a Quran. What's your name, guys? My name is Hashim.
I'm Jess.
Jess, and you are?
Saskia.
Saskia. Nice name, mashallah. And where's the gentleman who's with you?
Basically, the knowledge, gaining the true knowledge is the way towards success, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gaining towards.
Yeah, because human beings, we have been given intellect, rationality, and reasoning. Let's use those faculties, Hashim. Yeah. So
we need to spend some time.
Yeah, it's called Dawah Wise.
Are those going anywhere, or are those just random?
Yeah, so you see Dawah Wise?
Yeah, Dawah Wise.
Yeah. So that is my website. I happen to wear this. Okay, alhamdulillah.
Hope you got some good angles.
Yeah, we got lots of videos, and our aim is to educate people. We are not here to mock you or to embarrass you or to put you on the spot. Because I don't know if you. Is this the first time you guys come here?
I've been here a couple of times.
Okay, so this place, if you were new, is called Speaker's Corner, and this is where you can ask any question and you can talk about any topic. So I think that there used to be a lot of politicians like Karl Marx, I think even Lenin and all, they all came here. So these guys, they used to come here and they used to talk because it represents freedom of speech and expression. And this is a unique place. I don't think you'll find such a place even in a Muslim country or in any other non-Muslim country except for England. They try to have such a place in many places. I'm pretty sure they tried it in Australia as well. But it hasn't worked anywhere except here. The reason is I think they have been given special jurisdiction from the parliament for the safeguard of this place. So when there's any trouble, the police come in minutes.
I see that.
So you can imagine, sometimes the tempers just fly. Yeah. We're just waiting for the Quran for this ladies. Oh, I'll tell you what, which way are you guys going through the gate? The main gate?
Yeah, I think we're leaving, but I can read that one.
No, if you go through the main gate, just outside the gate, there's a guy standing with Quran. So just pick a copy from them. Okay? Okay, take care, guys. Yeah. Follow the God of Jesus Christ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, bro.